money organised Kensington Gurney, as you can see, nearly set up on time. And this is my brother, the very organised John Gurney. And this is a newly independent councillor, Alan Corkills, a town councillor. Been known to us for nearly 4 years. And I'm not going to say too much about it, even unless he wants to say what these changing circumstances are, obviously he'd be very welcome to do so. But I don't think we should pry into that, it's a personal decision. So I chair, John records the minutes, you ask questions. We don't necessarily answer them. We're not gods. We are town councillors, we're not CBC councillors, so if you want the road moved outside your house 3 foot sideways, we can't do that. If you also know this road really does need double yellow lines or something, we can take that to CBC councillors and promote what you're asking for, and we do.
Good. I mean, often there are things that are asked, and we'll go to our ward town council, CBC councillors, or we'll go to the CBC councillors in that ward. But well, I will take some notes. It'll be more about the points that were made. It's not verbatim minutes. But the thing is, we do invite all the other councillors. So a week ago, I sent another email to all the councillors, all 8 Central West councillors, all town councillors, and invited them here. And I got a reply from the mayor, who's Jones, who's got another engagement, which was planned last year, and also got a reply from Peter Hollick, town councillor Peter Hollick. He's on holiday. But apart from that, hello, come in if you want to come for a meeting. Come in. But apart from that, we didn't hear it from anyone else, but they were invited. So I'd say if there's any outcomes from this, we will forward it to the appropriate ward councillors and go from there.
Empty of councillors last time, because the last meeting we had was really full. Because everyone came to give us grief over the old Palace Lodge, which is absolutely fine. We took all the notes down, we took all the questions away and asked them. Alan came to that. I think they're expecting another hall full of angry monsters, but as you can tell, as I predicted, people have said what they wanted to say, they've registered they were unhappy about the way it was done, and they won't come to another meeting, they've said it. You know. And people, the people of Dunstable, of which I am one, and John's one, and you're all one, we're reasonable people. Someone said in the church there's going to be a riot or something. And I said, no, there isn't. And the woman in front of us turned and said, how do you know? I thought, because I know Dunstable. I know these people aren't going to riot. So, you're all good guys, so any question you've got is going to be reasonable and valid as far as we're concerned. And I don't think we've got an agenda tonight, so...
No, so...
Anyone with any thoughts?
I'd like to ask, these guys have all got work permits now. So I mean, they've got to pay their way into paying for the hotel and stuff, rather than being a burden on their tax money.
Oh, I think they will be. Andrew seemed all upset when he was asked that question. I think they will be.
I wasn't allowed in. I was ushered out.
Yeah,
I was shut out.
outside. Well, see, your questions, whatever they are, even if I think they're wrong, they'll still get asked. I'll still take them on board.
Well, I think they should pay their way if they're coming here. They should be paying their way as much as anybody else.
I think from what Andrew said in the hall, they will be paying tax, and I imagine.
No, they should be paying for their hotel, and they should be paying for their food and their heating and lighting, like we all have to.
Well, I think we all agree with you, in principle.
The problem they've got at the moment, the problem the government have got, that they've created for themselves, is that they are calling everyone asylum seekers. And on
they're
that,
not, they're illegal.
I know, but they are calling them asylum seekers, and because of that, asylum seekers have certain rights. And if they get approved to stay here while their application is being looked into, they may qualify to be able to work. But because they are asylum seekers, their accommodation is covered in that agreement.
I don't think they should pay my accommodation.
I know that, but that's the agreement. That's what the government. That's what the government have. Now, Andrew Selous did say he was asked a similar question at the meeting last Thursday. If these people are working and they're getting paid, are they paying tax and national insurance? And he said, well, yeah, because if they didn't, they'd be working illegally. So in the past, we do know that in other places, some people have moved out of their hotel accommodation and then gone and worked in the black economy as such, and then they may not be paying tax because they're working in a different sort of way. But in this situation, what Andrew Selous said was that some people have started working, some people have got jobs organised by organisations to help them, some people are doing voluntary work, but if they're working, they're paying tax and national insurance, they won't be paying the full rate for a hotel because that's already covered by the deal the Home Office has put in place. I understand what you're saying, but that's the deal.
I get what you're saying, but no, probably not. And then it's a question we can take in.
I actually think it's not about the people in Dunstable at all, the people in the Old Palace Lodge. It's the rules that govern the people that are in there, that have came there. And I think that's a national thing. When they arrive, homeless, destitute, with family, we have a responsibility under national law to put those people, look after them, give them a work permit, whatever. And I think part of the problem is we don't really know how the Old Palace Lodge and the residents there are being managed, what national responsibilities are, what the costs to people of Dunstable are. When they become useful in society, whether they pay tax, at what they earn, there are all the questions that should have came up that I would have liked to have asked if I had an opportunity. How is it being managed? What I do understand is that the Member of Parliament who is responsible for asylum seekers nationally in this country made £28 million last year as a profit out of it.
His own Serco, does he? His own part Serco.
It's
Serco's so wrong.
But we all feel, the problem we've got is we don't know how it's being managed, what happens to those people. I mean, if one of them is a qualified plumber, for instance, it's got a work permit, starts contributing to the town by actually plumbing, then he'll pay tax and national insurance and pay for his accommodation the way anybody else would. But we still don't know how those people in there are being managed, and I think that's the worry. I totally agree with you. My father can't turn his heating on. He's 87 and he lives next door
Well,
to
you
the
walk past there, all the windows are open.
He lives next door to the Old
The
Palace
heating's
Lodge,
boiling,
and he
all
has
the
to
windows are
pay.
open.
But that's not their fault. You know, it's not.
You can't blame the individual asylum seekers.
No, it's the fault of the system that they've been put into and what the rules are governing.
And the problem with that is, I think I'm backing Alan up here and reiterating what John said about the lack of transparency from the government, Central Bedfordshire Council. I think the town council's relatively open, but we could do better as well. But it's that lack of honesty with the public to say, well, there's the books. This is where we're getting the money from, which is off the taxpayer, which is, I'm sure a lot of you have been.
Well, £36,000 per migrant is costing. That's what the government figures are. £36,000 per migrant.
Further to that question about their accommodation, if it's true, like a lot of them that come over from France, instead of staying there, well, we all pay to go on holiday there, so they have to come here because they might have family. Why is the burden not put on their family to prove you have family and the family take care of it? It's a small amount of sort of pays to cover their costs, but it won't be the amount of staying in a five-star hotel. And you know, the government should know, if this is your family and they prove it, then if they abscond, you know, maybe there's a penalty.
Yeah, we can penalise
Because you could also find out if their asylum claim for family is actually true.
Well, I think part of the process for someone who is applying for asylum will probably be to ask them, do you have a family? Tell us about where you come from, because you've got to establish where they come from. You've got to establish what they can do, but also if they have a family. Because if they say during that process, oh, I don't have a family, I'm completely on my own, then once they so, okay, so he always interrupts me when I'm talking. So if they then say, no, I'm completely on my own, and then when they've got asylum status, and they say, yeah, I've got a big family and so on, then obviously that's going to create a problem. So I think that's probably going to be part of the process to establish.
I think, yeah, I mean, it all depends if they drill down to those details or don't just wave them through or just you know.
Yeah, it's a problem because asylum should be for people like Jews in the Second World War.
Yeah, or Ukrainians.
Or Ukrainians. I mean, no, I don't think anyone would have a problem with the Ukrainians turning up because it's obvious that Russia's invaded their country.
Yeah.
Other people, we do feel, I think most of us, tell me if I'm wrong, that there's an element of economic asylum going on.
Well, it is economic,
Yeah.
because as I grew up, my understanding of asylum seekers was they were supposed to apply for asylum in the first safe country they come to.
Well, that
The
is
people
wrong.
that we've
That is
got
wrong.
here, it's a destination of choice. And it's a destination of choice because they get better benefits here than they do anywhere else. I went to Mallorca a few years ago. I met a fella there. He was an electrician from the Midlands and he was running a bar. And I said, do you get problems with immigrants coming here? He said, no immigrants here because the Spanish don't give them anything. So they don't go there.
Nor do the French.
He said they've got to be there for 2 years before they get anything at all.
Firstly, they're not asylum seekers. They can't be if they've got work permits. That's the first thing, because if you're an asylum seeker, you're not allowed to work.
No, I think
I've
that's
just,
changed on the rules.
no, I've just looked it up. And nationally, it takes 6 months. So they can't be asylum seekers.
No.
So they must be migrants of some sort.
They're not asylum seekers, they're illegal immigrants.
What I'd like to understand is why they've been given work permits.
I think the other problem you've got is that since the country split with the EU, when we were part of the European Union, we had, for want of a better word, a return to sender agreement. So that if a legal migrant came from a European Union country, France, they came in, we could send them straight back because we had that agreement. And it was a reciprocal agreement. We had that agreement.
We didn't send
We had
them.
the
No, but we had
I
the
think
agreement.
we've sent 43 people back.
If you let me finish, please. We had the agreement before Brexit. After Brexit, there was a 3-year period between the vote and before we actually left the European Union officially, when they had the opportunity to negotiate that again. During that period, there weren't thousands and thousands of people coming in, there were hundreds. And therefore the government probably felt no need to negotiate or get on with that. And so they didn't bother to negotiate a new return to sender type, send back illegal immigrants from wherever they come. And then, when we officially left the European Union, then you started getting more and more coming over. And then they thought, well, what do we do now? Well, if you've got loads of people coming over, and you turn around to another country and say, can we send these back to you? They're going to say, no, because there's our agreement. And the problem is, everyone that's come in so far, the majority, I think it's something like 96%, are going to have to stay here in some form, because you can't just send people back to where they come from without an agreement. And if they don't want to go back to their own country, actually Andrew Snooze said it during the meeting. He said there was 50 criminals that they'd identified 50 criminals who'd come from Nigeria some few years ago, and they'd identified them. He went to the Nigerian embassy, because he used to work in the prison service, some part of the prison service, and he said, we've got these 50 Nigerians, we'd like to repatriate them back to your country. And they said, no, we don't want them. So if those countries won't take them back even after you've identified them, what can you do? You've got to keep them.
I think we could beat this around all night, really, but I think could we ask Andrew Salou the question for the clarity and avoidance of doubt? What are the people who are residing in the Old Palace Lodge? So we know what they are. What actually are they? And then can we add, why have they been given a work permit? So we know why.
I mean, Alan's got a good point here. That original thing is about the transparency. Well, tell us. Tell us, there's 91 people, 30 from this country, 6 of them have got work permits, one of them's a specialist plumber and he's fixing the plumbing in the primary church. Fine, we understand that one. But it's that transparency, it's that openness. And it's not, it's all hidden, it's all cloaked and down, we've done this suddenly. And
Let's face it, if they're all qualified doctors and dentists,
It wouldn't be a big
it wouldn't really be a big problem.
They would have got a visa and come.
Exactly.
They need retraining anyway, because they wouldn't be up to our standards.
Yeah.
No, but at least they would probably need a year or so of retraining.
Well,
But
even if, whatever they were, if they were illegal immigrants or asylum seekers or what, if they're contributing, then we haven't got a problem. But I don't think we actually understand what the
Who they
people
are.
are, who they are, and why have they been given a work permit.
At the end of the day, they've thrown their passports away.
So,
That just says it all. It
That's
says it all.
wrong behaviour.
If you don't want to be identified as where you're from, you throw your passport away, no one can identify you. You can say you come from Timbuktu.
well, as Alan says, we can talk about that all night. Shall we see if we can find another topic?
Yeah, it's where they go on to next.
Well, that is the
If
question,
you saw in
yeah.
the paper today, some councils like North Northampton and Basildon, the government's given them millions to build new houses for these people from around the country.
Build a ghetto.
Well, if they're getting new properties to go into, whether they'll still be paid for, rent paid for, whether they'll give them to them, whether the
So I understand what the plan
utilities are
is.
still free as well. But it's ahead of people that have been on the waiting list for years.
Yeah.
If you're a small family, you need a bigger property or...
well, in some ways you can understand that because you don't. If you're the government and you're paying out something like 7 million a day to accommodate people in hotels, it would be much cheaper if you built a house and put them in a house.
Well, if people on the waiting list, they could put people in the waiting list into those new
I
properties.
know what I'm saying,
And
but
they could perhaps go into them.
But what's the
they still have to pay the 7 million.
Roberta.
What Roberta's saying is,
Yeah.
if we're going to go out spending millions on building houses, what about the people that are here, living rough? Some of them do have young children. There's a woman on the run at the moment.
People that do things properly.
Yeah, they're just maybe a young couple that got married and then got evicted because he lost his job. Why don't they get a house? You know?
That must be a real...
Now, what's the criteria?
something to face.
I mean, I know of people in Luton that have been bussed into bed and breakfast in North London because there's no accommodation in Luton. Now, whether those people are more deserving or not than an asylum seeker isn't the point. The point is,
Friends of mine
it's about equality and compassion for everybody. The other question I think we could ask is what other accommodation is there in Dunstable that has been considered?
Yes. Do they intend them to stay?
Because we don't know.
Because again, Andrew Selous said during the meeting that he had asked the Home Office to consider an alternative hotel in Dunstable. He actually said that, and I remember him saying that during the meeting. I don't know if anyone else did.
But there's other empty accommodation, such as Watling House.
Watling House is the prime example, and that was suggested actually in the private church meeting, and it was basically
Is that empty now?
Yeah. As council owned, it costs a fortune to build. It's massive, not just for asylum seekers or migrants, but what about turning it into accommodation for people who need accommodation?
homeless people. They don't care, do they? They're not going to care. Well, this is just a warm room, but it hasn't got a very nice bed. You're living on the streets. You're going to be delighted to get
Yes, exactly.
you know.
But also, if you recall, Alan, when we had the full council meeting, and I put forward a motion about would the town council try to ask the other hotels not to accommodate block bookings of 3 months or more. I didn't mention asylum seekers, anyone. Just, if you were, please don't do that, because that has a knock-on effect to other businesses. All the businesses that, whenever anyone stayed at the Old Palace Lodge, the guests who went there would go to the other restaurants, they'd go to the pubs, and they will lose out as well. So I asked that, and that was voted down. So basically, if the town council knew that a hotel had been offered this, they wouldn't try to do anything to prevent it. That's basically.
And taking that on, in the week where we lose big stuff, which is a nuisance for John, obviously, shop in Queensway, and my son basket, which is a nuisance for my daughter, she's 15, so we're losing facilities, shop facilities. What we were trying to propose is that the town council, because we are the town council, put its finger on the pulse of the shops, all the shops. See how they're doing it. And report. We actually have an officer employed to do it. She does a good job. So we've probably got the information, or very close to it. Get feedback to the town councillors. This shop's going to have trouble for 3 months. Well, we can go and lobby Central Beds for a rates holiday. You know, we can lobby. We can put it out on social media. Anybody want to buy some sewing stuff?
Well, that was my concern about the selling basket. It's actually in Ashton Square, in a CBC owned property. It gave notice, God knows how long ago, because it would have had a notice period. CBC weren't minded, didn't trust us, or weren't confident enough to tell Dunstable Town Council that shop was shutting. So there was no possibility of any remedial action to try and keep it open.
We've
that's
got
really
18
the problem.
town
I
councillors
think that's a loss.
who should be out there working for any shop that's a bit struggling. And we can also put the strong ones, as the Sainsbury's, you know, we can put them, we can say, this shop can do with hand. Have you got anything? Could a member of staff stand in 2 days a week because she's ill? The lady running the shop's ill. So, have you got a member of staff that could? And Asda's and Sainsbury's and Tesco's and all of them, Lidl and Aldi, would all likely to turn around and say, yeah, we can lend you someone 10 hours a week. And then we can cover the shop owners when they're struggling for those few months.
It comes back to confidence.
We've got a talk of the town magazine that's produced by the town council and is issued 3 or 4 times a year. The next one is due to be issued, I think, in March. Now, if that shop, if we'd have known that shop was in difficulties, we could have hopefully made a feature of it in the talk of the town. Feature, you know, this is the only shop of its kind in Bedfordshire. Come and get your stuff here, and make a feature of it and try and get people to use it. We could have done the same within the old parish lodge. We could have said, right, okay, let's get events organised there. Let's get things down there in the garden happening every weekend. Let's actually organise town council sponsored events there. Let's try and see if we can, because I've got relatives in Blackpool, and what they do in Blackpool is they say to the local residents, in the winter months, we'll offer you a special deal. If you book our hotel for your visiting friends and relatives, we'll give you a special deal, 20% off, 25% off. So that would actually bring the prices down. You would feel good. Your friends would, your relatives would feel good because they're staying in a lovely hotel. But none of this, at no point did the Open Air Sky reach out to anyone and say, please help us.
No, I feel that the town council, us town councillors, need that information from our active officer, which is very good. You know, there's no criticism of the town council or its officer. She's probably collating most of this data, but is not instructed to deliver it to us. And as Alan says, there's a lack of, you know, respect was spoken about at the Priory Church quite a lot. You must respect us, show respect. But I think it's a two-way street. I think we, the public, should demand respect as well. And that means, right, we're going to rent out one of your big local hotels to the government, asylum seekers, fine. You know, we can all probably get used to that, given enough warning. Maybe we wouldn't like it, but we could get used to it. So tell us when you know.
I think they lost a lot of respect.
It's just a
because
change
they
of
knew in
information.
November, so that is totally like a transparency.
I think Dunstable Town Council, once we've gone through the elections, one of the things we should demand from CBC is information report. We had, on Dunstable Town Council, we had a number of CBC councillors, who were twin hands, with both Dunstable and CBC, who have been kept in the dark, or don't inform Dunstable Town Council. The sewing basket is, I think, more of an example than the old Palace Lodge in some ways, because it was rented by CBC. Surely the officer who took the notice could have informed in confidence Dunstable Town Council, and then maybe something could
And we could go and see the same basket and say, we're town councillors, 18 odds, what can we do to help you? And I'll go into Aston, Sainsbury's and Tesco, or probably, and say, look, these are the circumstances, what could you offer to help? We'd like a staff member 1 day a week, 2 days a week. We'd like some tea and coffee, so she doesn't have, you know, what can you give us off your shelves that you're going to chuck away that can help this
I don't know what their issue was. Was it about
The rates, I think the rates are too expensive.
I think the rates are too expensive.
They're moving to Great Yarmouth, and the rates are going to be a lot cheaper in Great Yarmouth.
But we could lobby
It's handy.
for a rates holiday, can't we, 6 months? See if we can.
Certainly, as
But we're not
CBC
given a chance to
policy,
sort it out.
they weren't given any information.
Nothing's going to change unless you change the political bias of the people that we've got who are running everything here.
Yeah.
It's quite,
Well, Alan has seen this and made his decision
It's-
accordingly.
Andrew Salute's chocolate teapot. I listened to him Thursday, I was there Thursday. He was very angry about so many things. But that's easy to be angry after the event. And whether I misread it or mislooked at it or misheard it, I saw a video of him uploaded talking in the Quadrant 2 weeks ago or whatever, where he said about the people coming here were just here for biometric testing and all that sort of thing, and what was going on. Then I heard him tell me Thursday, oh no, they've all been tested, they've got work permits, they've got this, they've got that. But he failed to give any information, which is what the people really wanted to know. And don't take this the wrong way, I couldn't give a monkeys about the old Palace Lodge. I've lived here since I was 5. And in that 60 odd years, I think I've been to the old Palace Lodge 10 times, dozen times. When my aunt died, we had to wait there, been to a family do there, been to a few things. I'm a bit of an history nerd. I love the old building, love all that. I feel sorry in a way that the bloke through COVID and whatever, as it apparently bad financial times. But that's I'm not worried about that. I would be annoyed if they knocked it down and built more flats, you know, because let's face it, there's not a square.
I know Andrew Salute said if we didn't do this during the meeting, he did actually say if we didn't do this, there's a possibility that it could be knocked down and built on flats, but you can't because it's a grade 2 listed building. That would never happen, I don't.
Well,
he obviously was thinking off the top and said, I've got to say something. That was obviously a mistake. That's never going to happen.
I appreciate what you're saying, John. There's a bunch of trees out in these doings somewhere that they're going to cut down to build something.
Well, I
They
think
are protected trees, and planning can override this dispute. So we've got to be very careful.
I think it does come down to the principle of the way it's handled.
Yes, it does.
The Sandbasket in the old Palace Lodge is similar in that way. That things are getting handled, decisions are being made, and we're not actually getting the information before the event.
I put my hand in my pocket to save somewhere like the Sandbasket.
Yeah.
I wouldn't for the old Palace
I
Lodge.
understand that.
Yeah,
no,
because
but you see, the thing is, with any business, it's all about promotion and advertising. You've got to keep promoting things to your local residents. If you want the local residents to come there, use your garden, go in the bar, whatever, because obviously local residents aren't going to stay in a hotel because they've got houses. But as I say, if they'd have done some sort of local deal to say, right, if you're going to have a party or something, come and have it here, and we'll do you a good deal on accommodation for the guests. Or if you've got a couple of friends coming for a weekend, you pay for it because you're a local resident, we'll give you a good deal. There are all kinds of things like that which they could have got the residents involved in doing. You know, I mean, I'm self-employed when I used to work, but you know, I can see those things. They could have said, right, if we get the town council involved, we can get events actually happening in that garden every weekend.
And at the Prosecutors in Tottenham, there's, I think I read some details, he owns that as well.
Yeah.
And certainly, sort of like some ways, or you know, with a marquee tent over, there could have been events there.
Yeah.
Because that's a really nice.
With the hotel, you've got to do, if you've got a hotel, you know, wherever you go on holiday, you know when there's a hotel, there are always lots of things going on. Whether it's winter, sun, or it's just going somewhere, they've always got something going on, especially during the week, always trying to get people in. And that way they keep locals busy, they can then communicate with the local residents. But if you don't do that and you just say, we've got a fantastic hotel, and we're not going to promote it, we're not going to advertise it.
no, the gentleman is right. We do have to change the political bias.
Look, if the majority of them were red, I'd be saying the same thing as I'm saying now. What they're doing is wrong. As it happens, they're blue, right? And I think that's indicative of how they feel about the people in
What
this
we're
town.
going to stand
How many of them turned up?
What we're going to stand for is independence, and there's a few in the room. We are still looking for a few candidates. If anybody wants to stand, it is very easy to stand for and be on the town council. this can take as little as 2 hours a month of your time to be fairly well involved in what the town council is doing.
Do we know how Johnson Tamara is running his bed and breakfast business?
He's,
This is on a guest house.
he's running as an Airbnb at the moment.
Is it? So he's not filled it with migrants.
No,
No.
But you could choose to.
he could do. He did apply. The planning permission was for a HMO to have several rooms. I can't remember how many different rooms. And each room could have had 2 people in to get a double bed. So there could have been, I don't know, anything from 12 or 14 people in there. But
I don't
in the end, he's decided to do something else, and he's changed it into a guest house.
On Airbnb. Well, I don't think he'll get asylum seekers a government contract because they come with the need
You
for
can go on the other
security.
contract though, can't you? There is another contract for private landlords.
Is there?
Yes.
Well, we were told.
Such person.
I was told when I put in the motion, I said that we should ask hotels and guest houses, and on several occasions, the other councillors said, no, the offer is not for guest houses. And Andrew Salus, I think, also said they can't put them up in guest houses.
Well, so watch this space. But your point's well made.
Yeah, we understand what you're saying.
Also,
I mean, to be honest,
is Kits
No,
Inn
Kits Inn
owned
is-
by council? Is that a council building?
It's in as a central Bedfordshire council facility for homes.
Right, is that being used?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is being used now.
For people in need, basically. So
Okay, so that's
there's a few disabled and a few recovering people.
For homes people in distress.
But let's be honest, from a business point of view, if you were running a hotel and you had like 40 rooms and you were only getting 5 or 6 occupied each week, on a weekday evening, and someone came along and said, what we'll do is we'll pay you full occupancy, so we'll pay for 40 rooms a night for the next year, you'd bite the hand off. So from a business point of view, you can't blame the Hopeless Lodge who have debts to do what they've done, from a business point of view.
I'm just looking at where else I can fill out.
Exactly.
But find people you know that will stand, get them in touch with John, and we've got to give the people of the town an independent alternative for the next term of government, so we can take this noise in volume up to CVC and say, you need to take this town seriously, you need to feed us back the information we need to know about the town, and then the town council can actively carry the town forward, or let the town carry it forward, really, because it's the people that will do it. The people will do it if the town council shows them a little light, just a little light. It's nothing to show the people that my sewing basket needed help a year ago. But the people would have flooded in, and they'd be really happy now. And these problems that we face as a town can be solved by the people working together. It just needs a little bit of leadership, which your town councillors will do. And if we get most of them to be independents, we'll go together, we'll lobby CBC and grab that information out of it, give it to you guys, and you can say, no, we don't want a left-hand arrow and a straight on, a right-hand arrow, we want it as it is.
That's what it's about. It's about, information and inclusions. That's what town council is limited as to what it can do, but it's not getting the information to pass to the residents. And for instance, whether you agree or disagree with the regeneration of the town and the new wide paths and the roads, and when you turn left or turn right, there hasn't really been any consultation with Dunstable Town Council. CBC took a decision and were doing that without consulting you, your town, without actually consulting you, and went ahead and did it.
Oh, actually, they do. I must correct you, just on principle, they do always offer a consultation. They put it up on their website, they send emails. If you're registered with Central Beds Council to get emails, they will send you an email and they will tell you, we are having a consultation on a project. Now they will tell you what they are proposing, you are allowed to give your comments, and they will go and do what they proposed. So, but that's their consultation.
It's also published in a Gazette. I
Yeah,
don't know if it's a London Gazette, it's a Gazette.
No, it doesn't.
They'll quote the publication and you can look it up.
Yeah.
But it's not something you could buy in Martin's or anywhere else.
No, and it's not an open public meeting either, where you can ask as many questions as you like and say what you feel and get a consensus of opinion from a public meeting where there may be a small number or there may be hundreds. That doesn't happen either.
No, and another way they publicise it, they put notices on lampposts
Yes.
that either stay there or they get ripped off.
They do everything that's legally required.
Yeah.
And in many ways, the officers of both councils are very, very good. I mean, the guys that work for Dunstable Town Council, the Rangers, are just crazy busy. I mean, I see them scrubbing the paper, and I'm like, I don't think we really need it polished like new, mate. But they do, and that's the way they work. These guys work for you in the town, and they do work hard. They've got a good boss, it's a good department, but they're led by donkeys. We don't have, and you can't really blame the councillors. They're a member of a political party, and that political party tends to dominate CBC. So they can't really kick up much of a fuss because they're in the same club, they're in the same gang. So if they kick up a fuss against what the group above them are doing, they consider themselves superior. You can see how it would. It's like the third year trying to overrule the fifth year.
But the great thing about being independent is that my brother and I don't agree all the time.
No.
Not just as brothers, but we might vote the same way if something's coming to council. And Alan might not vote the same as us either. But on one thing, we might all vote the same. But in a political party, you always have to do what the leader says, or you're going to be lower down. You're not going to be, and eventually you see it in the national politics. If you've got someone who doesn't go with the government position, or he doesn't go with the opposition's position, he never gets into the cabinet or the shadow cabinet. So they have to follow what the leaders in that group says. We don't really have a leader, so.
Andrew was living with the old Palace Lodge. If he'd made a real stink about it, that would have put him out with the Conservative Party. You can see that he would. The ones above him, why are you causing all this trouble? Just let it go.
But it would have promoted him here. And
It would have promoted him here.
Yeah, it would have boosted him.
The people, he had to face the people who made the buzz of the week earlier. They were really furious because of the health hub that they really, really wanted.
Because of the what?
Health hub. They wanted a health hub.
Oh yeah.
We didn't want a health hub, but we got one. And the people who made the buzz are really upset that we got a health hub in a green field that we didn't really want, rather than them. And I can understand them being upset.
And that was a CBC too.
Yeah.
Because Leighton Buzzard had been asking for a hospital for, I think, 40 years or more.
And I stood for election in 2005 against Andrew Salute. It was his first time up. I kept calling him David because I had David Waddell in mind. He used to get quite fed up with it.
Yeah.
What's the problem with that?
And I said, Leighton Buzzard, we should build 300 small hospitals in the country. It was my national policy, 300. Not 30 or 40, 300, because there are towns like Leighton Buzzard across the country that don't have a hospital. So they are told, well, you only have to drive 40 miles, do you?
Well, it's Milton Keynes or Luton.
And that is hard on people who are paying just as much tax as you and I, and are being told, well, an ambulance will get to you in a few hours.
That's like in St Albans. My mum's 83, my dad's 89. They have to go to Hemel or to Watford.
St Albans would be another town that should have a hospital.
Yeah.
Not a great big one,
Used to.
because technology has changed. Now, a doctor can be looking at your x-rays from anywhere in the world. Yeah, we build x-ray machines that go in airports all over the world, and you've no idea where the person looking at the thread is. You could be going through Luton and it might be in Los Angeles where that thread is being analysed. All over the world, or it could be Dunstable. Technology has changed, we can now see. So the small hospital no longer needs to have all the specialists. It needs the machine, but the special decisions can be made in London. So you can build small hospitals, and the health hub in Leighton Buzzard would be a brilliant idea. Treated as a cottage hospital, if you like. 6 nurses, a couple of doctors, a small A&E department, so when there's a car accident, a fire in the middle of the night, a child in the middle of the night, and you think meningitis, any qualified nurse is useful if your child has got meningitis. Anyone who knows what to do with it. And you totally agree with them. You totally said Leighton Buzzard is the largest town in the country without a hospital, down your Salute Stadium at the time.
Part of the problem there.
Where is the hospital?
Part of the health club problem in Dunstable is it's been underfunded, and what equipment was going to go in going to isn't now. So what the example you've made about Lake Buzzard and the health hub that has been put on Dunstable, whether it wanted it or not, isn't going to be the health hub that we expected. And one of my concerns after driving, as I mentioned on Sunday, through Mountain Regis, is the amount of houses that have been built with no services. That's going to put pressure on the ambulance service.
And it's another site,
hospitals,
it's
and
another
services.
town where a health hub would be a huge thing.
Yeah, but they built a little, don't forget.
Yeah.
I spoke to the police when I was outside when I wasn't allowed in,
Yeah.
and the copper actually admitted they have 4 officers patrolling the Dunstable area at the night time.
Yeah.
4 officers.
Which is interesting because there was 5 officers outside.
But there was more than that. There was
No,
about
that's
20.
actually bandit.
There was about 20 officers there that night.
Yeah, there was more police outside Priory Church than there was one ever
But there's
seen.
only 4 patrol on a regular basis around this area. He tried to include Houghton Regis and Leighton Buzzard. And I said, no, please answer the question I'm asking you. And he admitted there was 4 officers patrolling this area.
Most of them, they're undermanned anyway, so they won't be full, they'd be a nominal full. It's the same as the parking ticket guys. We found out they're less than half staffed, so it's not surprising they're not all over the streets ticketing the cars. And we found them outside the council offices going to a meeting, ticketing cars. And they're obviously working quite hard, they're obviously, good guys. There's not enough of them.
Under resourced.
And the
When's
same
the hub coming on stream? Or supposed to?
Sorry, say again.
When is the health hub coming on stream?
It's supposed to be coming on stream in May, June. That was the original. I think that was the original third
So instead
date.
of phoning up Kirby Roads and being told to phone back every other hour,
toilets, yeah.
on our phone near us and start phone back. Because if they haven't got enough doctors to supply the GP services that we've got in that, where are they going to get them from the hub?
Well, the ones for the hub are coming from Priory Gardens. Priory Gardens surgery is going to close and go to the
not
hub.
quite a toilet.
3 weeks to get an appointment in there, mate.
Well, that's the only surgery that signed up to the health hub.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only surgery. The other thing
3
is,
weeks to get an appointment there as we stand.
the other thing is what they could do for doctors in the hub is they could directly employ them and just advertise for other doctors because it was earmarked to have 5 surgeries go in there. They must have the space for those 5 surgeries, so therefore I would think if they've got the money they would start advertising for more doctors. But as Alan said, it's been underfunded. They announced last year, we attended the meeting in December, Dunstable Joint Committee, they announced then that there wouldn't be an X-ray department and there won't be an ultrasound department, which when they originally said it a couple of years ago, all this long list of things, and that long list has been reduced, things they won't have.
Well, they sold the forest up, we're getting bed and breakfast.
Yeah.
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 And the other concern with the health hub is that there's only one surgery, which is private gardens signed up to it. The other surgeries haven't, have they?
No,
There's only one surgery, yeah, exactly.
but the whole point about modern health is that it is and should be, through the technology, far more distributed. The hospitals are now starting to do hospital at home, where they basically come and turn your front room into a miniature hospital ward. They monitor you by using the technology. I'm not going to go into it, I know, but I don't have to. And they know your heart rate and your blood pressure and your pulse and everything. They know everything about it, and it's all on screen, monitored by a computer. It flashes red if you're in trouble, and they're straight on it. And then your husband, sister, brother is your nurse, and they just instruct them over the phone, and they're doing that now. So there's going to be far less need in the future for great big hospitals, and far more need for distributed healthcare throughout the community. It's the way things go.
And what our main argument against a centralised health hub was that in all of the wards, whether it's Manshead, Dunstable South or Dunstable North, Northfields or East Dunstable, we haven't got anything. We haven't got a clinic, we haven't got doctors. So if we had a doctor's surgery in the outskirts, then all those communities could be looked after. You could have a doctor's surgery, and maybe you have a specialist type clinic. You might have the dementia clinic one place, you might have the maternity clinic another one, you might have the blood testing at another one. So really, if you spread it out, all the communities, you wouldn't have to travel into town, you wouldn't have to find a parking space, you wouldn't have to go all through that, you just walk down to
the shops down Katherine Drive, they're big shops, would make a great little doctor's surgery, 2 or 3 doctors. And, you know, for us local residents there, we'll look down the doctor's arm again.
That's the other thing. When I lived in Howard Regis, I lived in Trident Drive. And there used to be a doctor's surgery in one of the houses in Trident Drive. I literally had to walk 1 street away to go to the doctor's.
Yeah, I mean, what we're saying, has all been done in the past. There used to be college hospitals, they were brilliant places. They cared for people. You know, nurses and doctors living locally, caring for people they knew, which made people very comfortable. You know, they're coming in and there's Nurse Cheryl looking after me, I feel comfortable immediately, you know.
There's a place up the road called Milton Keynes. Now, that's been, over the years, that's been added to and expanded. I did live there for a couple of years when I was about 19, 20. And I lived in what was then a new estate called 2 Mile Ash. In 2 Mile Ash, we had a supermarket, a small supermarket, and we also had doctor's surgery. And then the next estate on, where you just had to go under an underpass to the next estate, they had a dentist. And the next one on, they had a doctor's surgery. The next one, and they were dotted all over the place. And it's like Dunstable has thought, well, we're not going to bother to do what they're doing up there. We're not going to look at how people have actually been designing towns. We're going to go back to centralised.
If you talk about designing towns, they put that house up there, you try getting out of the house at 4 o'clock at night. So when the health hub becomes successful, how are you going to get in and out?
And the car parking they've allocated is what was allocated to the Grove Theatre. So if you go for an evening appointment and the Grove Theatre's got a big show on and the bowling's being used at the time, it's going to be difficult.
And if you want to go to the Grove, there's every chance they'll say that will make you can't get parking. It's not worthwhile.
We did suggest to them, before the planning, there was a meeting in the library and they had ideas and designs up, and I suggested to them they build an underground car park. Even if they only went 1 level, it would be at least 90, 100 cars. But they said no, and I said, why not? They said, well, it takes years to get your money back. I said, how many years? They said 30 years. I said, okay, how long do you expect this building to last? 100 years. Okay, you do the mathematics. Oh, I don't want to talk about it. Well, okay, but that's the thing. You come up with, we have underground car parks in other places.
And I know about them. Our firm does underground car parks. It did a big one in Grosvenor Square in London. And then they don't have to be expensive nowadays, because the actual digging out and construction of an underground car park is not the cost it was 20 years ago. There are machines that virtually do it on their own, and it's done in a couple of weeks.
Hindsight, they should have built the underground car park and then put the hub on top of it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There was some published figures this week, I read it a couple of days ago, doctor-patient ratios across the country, and it seemed to work out, the figures I read, seemed to work out about 2,000 per doctor, 2,000 patients per doctor. The better off places had sort of 1,500 per doctor. Kirby Road, my daughter did some research a week or 2 ago. Kirby Road is listed as having 1 doctor and 8,000 patients.
How does it cope, Doctor? How?
If you don't see a particular doctor who is the doctor, you can see another one, but he's a locum. He'll come in there, he'll meet you there, and you can have a consultation. But he's not a doctor there; he's a locum. There's only 1 doctor there.
Well, you've got Dr. Marcel, who's the last surviving partner from when it was Dr. O'Toole and Dr. Kurt. But you have 3 you've got 3 other doctors who are there. But most doctors don't work full time in the doctor's surgery. They do other things as well. They don't just go home and put their feet up. They do other things as well. So it isn't really 1 to 8,000. It's more like the 1 to 2,000 or less. I was a member of the patient partnership group, what they call a PPG, And this is a group which most doctors surgeries should have them by law. And the idea is that the patients have a group where they can go to with their concerns, and that group will then take them to the doctors and have a meeting about all kinds of issues. That group was recently taken over by the surgery itself because they didn't like the person who was the chairman. And so they decided to get rid of her, and they decided they were going to do their own thing. And they got their own chairman in. And so basically now, if you even go to complain to the patient group, they'll just dismiss it because the doctors are doing whatever they want to do.
Well, I know Dr. Marcel, there's not a lot he can do. He's a victim himself because he can't cope with the number of patients he's got on his books.
A lot of doctors and nurses at the moment feel like victims. We know that because they're on strike, but they're not normally on strike. And it is certainly not all about pay for nurses and doctors. It is about the underlying conditions running through the health service. And unfortunately, in my opinion, the only true solution is more money.
If you remember, before the pandemic, a year or so before the pandemic, the government were trying to bring in 7 days a week doctor surgeries. They were saying to them, you've got to be open longer hours, you've got to be open 7 days a week. And of course the doctors kicked it back against that because there aren't enough of them. There hasn't been enough investment for the last 20 years in the health service. We all know that. Pandemic comes along, doctors then a rarity because now you need them in hospitals and you need them in the local GPs. So then the doctors suddenly realise that, hold on, we can actually control this argument because there are less of us, because you haven't invested, government, so you can no longer dictate to the doctors what you want to do if you're the government. You've now got to go to the doctor and say, please, could you do this? Because we realise we haven't invested. And
we haven't over the last 50 years, in all honesty. So it covers the political spectrum. No party is clean. We haven't invested in the number of doctors, nurses and dentists that we need.
I know this much. I could get in to see a doctor and dentist 12 years ago.
You're running out because they're retiring.
Yeah.
And we haven't got enough young ones coming through.
What I'm saying is when they come in, the government knew that there was going to be a shortage of doctors. Why haven't they done anything about it? Why are we still
It costs
buying
money and it's unpopular.
Because at the time we were in the European Union. So when we were in the European Union, anyone could come from a European Union country like Germany, and people were coming. Doctors were coming over during the week. They'd fly over. They'd spend 3 or 4 days in England, UK, doing the work. They'd then fly back home, and they'd probably do 1 day, and they'd make so much money that they didn't.
But we are honest about this. 1.25% put on national insurance. It was unpopular. They took it away, but I understand that was going to produce something like 54 billion, 56 billion a year to plough into the health service.
It's pretty unpopular. Millions and millions of pounds, some of them are made during COVID.
Yeah. But we need, I mean, the health service, and this is, we've got migrants in the hotel, but the health service does stand on migrants. A large part of the workforce in the health service is things like Kenyan nurses that are here in town.
Filipinos.
Legal
migrants.
Legal migrants, yes.
That makes a big difference.
I don't think any of us object to legal migrants. Someone who can speak English, someone who's qualified.
And it's a terrible plan, but it's a plan we've relied on for 30, 40 years. Because you can see it in the programme on television with the nurses delivering the babies.
Call the midwife.
Call the midwife. You can see it, call the midwife.
Sorry, no.
I mean, I've been to the film set and everything. My wife loves it, but remember the name. We've invited nurses in, and in itself, there's nothing wrong with that. But to rely on it, as that's how we're going to feed staff into the health service, has been a terrible mistake. And the only thing to do is to realise, grasp the nettle, train the doctors and nurses and dentists like mad. But I've watched the nursing colleges and the doctors' colleges shut. They've been closing down year after year. Every year I've had, this one's gone, that one's gone. And obviously if we're not training them at a really quick rate with an ageing population.
And then the government takes away the nurses' bursary as well, so that doesn't help.
Well, yeah,
The
exactly.
GP degree now.
Because the people who go into nursing aren't rich. The people who go into nursing come from working class families
Most of
who probably couldn't afford to go to universities. And the bursary made such a big difference.
So, I mean, this is really beyond the town council, fixing the NHS, but
This is very much a national argument.
but it doesn't mean that the town council can't form the basis for the argument and take that up to CBC and say, you need to be saying at national level, let's get things changed. We can argue, I certainly as a town councillor could visit Leighton Buzzard and help them with their argument for their health hub. I'd be willing to do that. It may not make any difference, but I'll do it if that's what the people tell me needs doing. And that's the point about having independent councillors.
I've been pushing.
We will do what you say.
From day one, when we were first elected, I knew that Houghton Regis Council, Town Council, had invited Dunstable Town Council to meet with them, and they had suggested that we have a joint committee or joint agreement over crime, especially on the border between Icknield Ward and Houghton Hall and also Northfields Ward. So we could have some sort of joint agreement, and I knew that had been proposed, and I asked what was happening about that, and I was just told, well, we went there, but we didn't think it would be very good. So I've been asking for 4 years. I've even contacted Leighton Buzzard when we had the Ukraine crisis start last year. I was involved in organising the benefit concert for the Ukrainians and then getting it in the Grove Theatre. And I got in contact, I wrote to all the councillors in Leighton Buzzard, in Luton and Houghton Regis. I sent all emails, I said, please can you help us, please get involved with that. And I got one from Leighton Buzzard, I got one from Luton, and I got one from Houghton Regis, and they were all like, well, I don't know what we can do. I said, yeah, but if we get together, we can have an event in Luton, we can have an event in there. And yeah, but you know, you're Dunstable and we're there. And there's no cooperation.
And as independents, we're going to spread the love. We'll go and see Leighton Buzzard and we'll get something going. And as Houghton Regis, we'll see them and get something going. And we'll do it because we don't have an overarching association. We're not a member, we call ourselves Dunstable Independents, but that's just the independents in Dunstable. We don't have an overarching association to which we belong. Whereas obviously the other groups, the Labour group here cannot go over and muscle in on the Labour group in Leighton Buzzard's territory. There are organisational structures that prevent them doing that. So again, my argument is for independent politics and councillors being commanded by the public to achieve what you want, which is a few arrows painted. Now John took that, John did the speech at...
for the church, yeah, for Church Street, there was a petition that was raised by, two petitions were put on the Central Beds Council website, because if you want to have a petition, you have to, official, you have to have it on the Central Beds Council website. So two petitions were put forward by a guy called Alan Winter, and they basically asked the same question of, regarding the road markings on Church Street, do you want them to stay as they are, or do you want them to go back to what they used to be, which was the left-hand lane, you could turn left and go straight on. Now, the vote was, for those two petitions, for them to stay as they are, as we see them now, 15, to go back to how they used to be, 1,387. Now, I took that to Central Beds Council, full council meeting, so you've got all the councillors there. I made that presentation, had a 3-minute
He made a lovely 3-minute speech. I sat and watched it and thought, well, he's won the argument.
And then they had a short debate. It was about 10-15 minutes. And we even heard one councillor say, it's not as simple as painting a white arrow on the left-hand side. But it obviously is, because cars are already going in the left-hand lane and going straight across.
It's dangerous.
And so
it's dangerous because it's not official.
What struck me is, having heard from the public, 1,387 to 15, this is pretty conclusive. Well, we're not going to do it. We don't want to change it because we thought it out. We want to do it this way. So what we're going to say is it's not as simple as all that.
Didn't they give you a good rationale then?
No, that was their
The
rationale.
rationale was they've made a decision.
I meant it was dangerous as it is now, not dangerous.
Based on what?
based on
Yeah,
the
it's dangerous as it is now.
I-
That's not good enough.
And that's
It's
what
not good enough.
They've
You're
got
quite
to
right.
spit it out why.
You're quite
Does it
right.
bruise their ego? Because
Yeah, I think so. I think
Oh,
you're
is there a little bit?
going against the ego, but it becomes, it's like anyone, once you're in a gang, you've got to do what the gang wants.
Because one of the weekends is that at that meeting they said they were going to have yet another consultation.
Yes, exactly.
Yes,
When I was 8 years old, at Cambridge School, my friend Eric came from South Shields. So we were like, well, hang on, we like, that's a bit Liverpool, but he had a real strange accent. And bright red ginger hair like my dad. And he was being bullied. And he said, I wish I could get some protection. And I'm like, well, you can get some protection. We'll have a gang. We're going to call it Mental. And it was the most successful gang you can imagine in history. Every little kid that was being bullied joined it. And then we as a gang started bullying the other kids. So after about 6 weeks, Eric said, this is terrible. We've become what we hate. And we had, with the best intentions in the world, we joined a gang. Once we were in a gang, anybody who did something to someone in our gang, we had to go and beat them up. We had to go and beat them up for the good of the gang. Oh, it was horrible. And we disbanded them. So it only lasted about 6 weeks, and I'm not a terrible criminal or a big gang member, but I do understand how the gang mentality changes you from a rational, ordinary person to being driven by a desire to protect your own. And that desire to protect your own starts overriding common sense. And that's what I saw at CBC when John made his speech. It should have been dead simple. You're right. Black paint, white paint, some cloth to cover up the filter hours, which wouldn't make it dangerous. Off we go in the morning, 2 hours, job done. It is that simple.
And none of them were brave enough to.
No.
I disagree with you.
No, they talked about consultations, they talked about why they couldn't do it. It's all not that simple.
They wanted to look at the lights further down the road.
How much does that cost when I done that? The lights further down the road, that, hundreds of thousands, didn't it?
Yeah.
And they very quietly got shelved.
But you've got the same problem. You've got the same problem in High Street South coming in. If you want to go straight on and you get into the right-hand lane, if there's a bus in front of you, you can't even see round it. That bus is trying to turn right, and you're trying to get straight on. So you have to pull out into the left-hand lane in order to go then straight on. So,
Well, I said to the council, say, well, it's safer because you've got to check your mirrors when you pull out. But is that the same council? A few meetings ago, when the mayor was here, I raised about, why aren't these HGVs being fined for coming through Dunstable and used as a transit,
yeah,
not just to stop and deliver, which you'd expect them to do, which is a transit route. And his reply was, we need to follow up on our original request to see if we can actually get the registration numbers to find these HGVs.
yeah. And for that you need an ANPR camera.
Well, they've got cameras at both ends.
Yeah.
And
There is that,
Sorry?
blue cameras up on the poles.
Yeah, the other one's more.
Yeah, it
it all comes down to enforcement. Doesn't it? The other thing about changing the lines on the road, because I actually had that conversation as well, it is the decision's been made, and it's almost like we're not going to back down on this anymore. We've made the decision. We're the experts, go away, and that is the problem that we've got.
Yeah, and that's why they can't seem to see that's what we've got the biggest problem with.
Yeah, and we'll find out at the next election. If we can get substantial number of independents to stand and offer that to the people as a choice, we will vote. We, sole room, will go and vote. And if we want to vote Conservative again, we'll carry on as we are. And if we want to vote Labour, we'll carry on as we are on a different colour flag. And if we vote independent, you'll get a number of representatives who are truly independent. You can go around and knock on the door. People have knocked on my front door and said, can you do something about this? And I'm like, well, I don't know, but I'll have a go. And that's fine by me. Come and knock on my front door, I'll open it, you can come in, have a cup of tea and tell me someone has trashed all your curbstones outside your house, and I'll get something up. One of the ones was just up the road from where I live. I live on the Loop Road. I don't heavily campaign against trucks because then they'd all say you're a councillor and you're trying to get an advantage just for yourself. But the people from down the road came and said, our grass verges are ruined every year by cars. Can you get some wooden posts put in? And we got hold of Central Beds Council. To be fair, I think one of our Central Beds councillors did help heavily, didn't we?
Yeah, John Chatterley.
John Chatterley. And now there are posts there, and the neighbours are really happy. The dentist is furious because customers used to find it really handy to park on the grass.
This is the junction of Ridgeway Avenue and Luton Road. And actually, those I've seen another plan that all the posts that they put in, they're now going to take out and put in new posts, which are bigger with more reflective.
They're very reflective as they are. You turn down in your car, you get blinded by them.
And that's the trouble. You give them a good idea, they get on it, and then they'll spend a fortune on it, and they'll waste money.
I don't understand why they're going to replace posts. Surely these other posts they're going to put in were in existence when they first put them in 2019.
Post technology has not advanced.
Yeah, so why do the job twice? Because it's like you're wasting money. Yeah.
So enough from us, come on. Feed us some more news.
One of the things, just before we finish on the roadworks, one of the decisions why the roads are crazy in Dunstable, right turns across roads, a senior Conservative in the Executive Committee of CBC told me part of the reason is because it slows people down. And he wanted the roads in Dunstable to be calm. So that's the thinking.
They're at standstill, they're not calm.
Yeah, but that's the thinking. You annoy the drivers enough and they'll drive better. They won't get angry and drive like you do.
Yeah.
Miss, your turn.
Yeah, I saw when, because your leaflet works, that's why I'm here tonight, through the letterboxes, you said about you stopped one of these masts going up on Woodfield Road.
We did.
I was away the other week, and then I came home and I looked out my window up onto the Langdale Road, and then I thought, what the, monstrosity thing that I don't know if you've seen it up at the Langdale shops.
Langdale, yeah.
Yeah, this G5 thing, it's horrendous. I didn't know anything about that.
No, we didn't know that.
Otherwise I would have said, when I first saw the little box going up, I thought, oh, is that the G5 thing? And then that thing, it's just...
I'd have campaigned against that if I'd known, but you don't have an independent councillor, and because we're at the other end of the town, we didn't know that, so we didn't campaign against it. I am so sorry.
It's just so...
Because it's just ruined your neighbourhood.
Well, it is, and whether it emits a lot of radiation, whether it's connected to all the smart, because the smart city thing, I want to know your opinion on that, or the street lights. I mean, some roads where you might have had 3 or 4 in a road, you've got about 6 or 7 down there because they're all smart and they're all connected.
I'll give you the science.
Because they have to be have line of sight to get to them. That's why because you didn't have them like that on G3 or G4. So they're exactly so whereas the old Palace Lodge, as I understand it, the councils were discouraged they're sort of discouraged by the government from sharing anything too soon. So what else are you discouraged from sharing about this smart city thing, which is...
Well, that one should have come, it should have come to the planning committee. We have Dunstable Town Council has a planning subcommittee, and I'm actually the vice chairman, and I don't actually remember that one. I remember one for Brewers Hill Road. I remember a planning application for that, which I think was rejected. I remember there was one for the town centre on the square, and there was one for Woodford Road, which we managed to we managed to, well, the planning officer said no, you're not going to do that in the end, so we campaigned against that. I don't actually remember this one coming to the planning officer, so I will look into it.
Yeah. You know, I mean, it's a horrendous looking thing, and if it's emitting radiation, and there's lots of schools and things around there.
But as I say, I'm surprised.
It's stubborn, amongst the trees.
I'm surprised that none of the, well, maybe I'm not, because when we were campaigning against the 5G Mars, when I was first contacted about it from local residents, they said, "Do you know this happening?" Because it was during the pandemic. It was right at the end of the first lockdown. It was around about May, June 2020. I didn't actually hear about it local resident said, have you seen these notices on the lamppost? Well, I hadn't been outside my house for 3 months, so of course I hadn't seen them.
And a lot of people probably wouldn't have.
But because we were notified, I said, well, I'll wait until what other people say, because unless I get a majority of people saying we're against something, I can't really take sides as such. But obviously there was a majority of people on Facebook, social media and locally contacting us and saying, you know, we need to do something about that. So we did, and so we went to the planning committee, and we got the planning committee to say, no, we're against this. However, we organised a protest, and it was like the first time I'd actually been to the top of my road in 3 months. It was the end of sometime in June. We organised a protest. We contacted all of the other councillors and asked them to come down and help with that. Everyone was standing 3 metres apart. Everyone was wearing their masks. Do you know what? Instead of helping us, they phoned the police. And the police came down in three vehicles. Yeah, they came down in 3 vehicles. We only had about 12, 15 people there. And they came down in 3 vehicles. So what are you doing about this protest? And said, all we're trying to do is tell the people who wanted to do test drilling.
They wanted to dig a test on.
Without any planning permission. The planning permission hadn't been approved. They just wanted to do some test drilling.
And we decided that if we could stop them digging the test hole, they wouldn't be able to move the mast. So there was about 12 of us, as you say, and all the other councillors. Well, Mark Can, did come and support us. He cycled down and said, bully for the downs and less off-green things. Great lad, supported us. There were about 12 of us, as John says, and these were mums that are going to do other things. You know, people will come and go. I had 5 policemen that were called by fellow councillors. The van, which was again a couple of Northerners turned up and parked across the road. This is where the holes are. And I said that it was all getting a bit warm. I said, I'll go and have a word. So I tried to cross the road. Said, all right, lads. And they went, why am I? We've got to dig all. And I said, oh, yes.
They come from South.
They came from South Sheffield. They were actually from Newcastle. One was from Newcastle, the other one
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
And they said, well, yeah, we promised to go. And I said, oh, well, you don't want to dig a hole, what did you say? And I said, well, if someone parked a car over that and paid over there, we would not be able to dig a hole. And I said, oh, hang on a minute.
Somebody got my car, drove down and parked
We've
it.
got 3 cars, parking. We didn't quite know where they were to go. And they looked at me and they said, yeah, that's great, we can't dig the hole now, we'll have to ring our boss and go home. That is the point. These guys, it was their contract to dig a hole, could see the stupidity of putting a mast there, and wouldn't actively support us, but certainly told us how to stop it and let us stop it.
So I then contacted Central Beds Council. I got in contact with the roadworks department, and they said, look, this site hasn't had planning permission, so you can't start drilling on something that hasn't got that. They looked into it, they got back to me the same day and said, yeah, you're right. So cancel this works order and we'll wait until there's planning. And the reason we organised that is because we'd heard in Luton a company had done a similar thing. They suggested you put a mast there, they'd done the test drilling, and when there were protests about this, they went to Luton Borough Council and said, well, this has cost us thousands of pounds, so if you cancel our contract, we're going to sue you for thousands of pounds. That's why we made the point about not having the test drilling.
There's absolutely no need for any anger or aggression about it. You just deal with the guys, and most people are.
But the point is, us getting involved, supporting the local people. Whereas, so obviously, what's happened there is whoever your councillors are there in that ward. Well, I don't want to say, I know they are, but I'm not going to say names out loud. But I don't want to say that because
on the website tell you.
But I can look into the planning for that, and I can see if there was any objection from the planning subcommittee, and we can go back to that. But really, it's you want to be knowing beforehand that it's happening.
Wow.
If we're all indoors and everything, and you've got a lot to sort of worry about, whether it's you've still got a job or anything. I mean, I was fine, apparently. But
you've all got lives to live.
Things, yeah.
You need local
You
representatives.
just don't see that coming, and I think sometimes these immigrants coming in are a bit of a distraction, it's calling a hoo-ha, while other things are going on, without you being
But
told.
why do we hold these every
Lack of
month?
integrity.
One of the other political parties recently suggested that we're holding these to get re-elected.
But we've been
That's
doing
why
it
we
for 4
started.
years.
That's why we started month 1. We're holding these because I don't know all the answers. I didn't know about your last. I'm so glad you've come and told me, because I can take that on as a concern.
You can't miss it. I mean, it's at the end of somebody's garden that overlooks sort of like the shops.
So Kensington
And
probably
if it is
doesn't drive
emitting a lot of radiation,
I don't.
what kind of radiation, what harm is it doing?
I'll come back that lady up. It is an absolute monstrosity. I was using a laundrette up there, and I saw them put in what I thought were like junction boxes or something for, you know, Virgin or whatever.
That's what I thought.
And it didn't seem anything special, saw the men doing it. Then I went back a week later, and as I came out, I looked up and I saw the pole there. It's just unbelievable.
30 metres it will be, yeah, it'll be massive.
Yeah, unbelievable.
And they're going to put the one that we blocked by Lidl, which is fine. Lidl's an eyesore anyway, so, you know, it's not a pretty building, is it? It's not a private.
That's
So-
a-
But it's also
Sensible price,
lack of
isn't
honesty about that has been connected to your street lights and your 15-minute.
No, it won't be. And the
Is there much
radiation,
going up in
the
time?
radiation, the evidence does appear that they're not particularly any more dangerous than having a microwave in your house.
Yeah, but where's that data from? If it
All
isn't
over.
a company data
All
or
over the
government
world,
data,
I've
how
read
much
a
you
lot of
believe
them.
them?
I've read a lot of reports and so, well, part of my job has been training people on X-ray machines. And then when I was in Cyprus, we had a big problem with people who wouldn't operate the X-ray machines because of the radiation. And I had to explain to them that the radiation from the X-ray machine was about 1/10 of the radiation from the sun. And the problem is you live in Cyprus where the sun's always in the sky and always shining on you. And you're probably in the same sort of scale. The radiation you're getting is probably less than what you get from the sun, or mysteriously the planet, because that's a big nuclear reactor as well. And it chucks out radiation all the time and it goes through us. It's of a frequency that doesn't bother your body. It can, it's a thing called probability, but it's so unlikely that it's not something we should be overly concerned about.
Do you want a hand?
Can it not be
Do you want
moved?
some help?
Well,
That's not done, it isn't.
I just think it's unsuitable.
I think we're going to struggle to get it moved,
No.
but I'm very happy with your local councillors
Because there's a
to.
lot of, you know, people around there, kids, you know, in the shop.
Right, we'll have another meeting in a month. Get a gang on 4th Street to come down and demand and do something about
Yeah,
it.
how transparent were they with the,
I'd say it's more being able to sell your house. If you've got something like that in your garden, you're really struggling to sell your house.
Exactly.
You would do, you would do.
It's
And
really
it's
going to affect
And I'm very happy to
Right.
head up a protest on your behalf, but it's difficult because I'm not in the ward. But I will talk to you
I
about
don't know,
it.
quite independent actually.
There's only 3 of us.
I think the thing is, if I want to ask the question, really, why was it put up? The planning commission must have been granted.
It must have been, but if it was while the pandemic was when we were shut down or
Again, it comes down to information and
and other things. It's just kind of snuck in while everyone
Yeah,
was
you
focused
weren't-
elsewhere, like, you know, focused on the immigrants, so that
You weren't looking, so they didn't. Yeah, I'm quite happy to. John will look into the planning, and I'm quite happy to try and not organise a protest. I'm not a protester, but to see if we can't go to the powers that be and say, look, you put this up and planning shouldn't have been granted.
if it were to fall down, and it probably looks like it won't, it will flatten one of them houses there, or a lot of people.
But the critical thing
Or
for me
flats, other
is,
shops.
will we be able to garner support from the people who live locally?
I'll work on that.
Yeah, if you work on that for me, I'm Kensington Gurney, you can find me on the independent side. Yeah, we'll quite happily head you up and do the things that you're doing. Whether or not we succeed, I can't guarantee it. I'm not God. But I'll get you the best representation we can to the best people we can, and we'll see what we can do. And that's what we have to do. We have to try, don't we?
Yeah, we should have ideally done this before.
Again, it's after the event.
Yeah, yeah. And this is why it's sneaky to do these things while people
I
are
dare
distracted
say the
elsewhere.
notices were put up and the objections would have been observed if there had been any, and there probably wasn't any, so planning commission was granted and it was put up.
Yeah.
That's the answer you'll get.
And we'll have to argue that the people weren't made well enough aware, even though probably all the legal rules were followed. We'll have to argue that, look, it actually ruins the street.
But wouldn't they have, but because there's a pandemic, and John actually said about being indoors, and when it first was sort of like publicised, with everybody being indoors, and yeah, a lot of people might have looked online or something, but other people, if they had families, if they're working from home, you've got time. Was it publicised, because they're extenuating circumstances, should it have been much more open and out there?
Exactly. People should know
Instead of
what's going to go on in their road and their local area, in an open, honest way. And maybe if you want to, I mean, there were quite a few people who came on when we, it went up on our Facebook page, Kenneth and John will be stopping this 5G mast. And quite a few people came and said, oh, I want the 5G mast because I play a lot of games and I want them to be fast. And we weren't saying don't put up a 5G mast. We were just saying don't put up a 5G mast there, that ruins the street view. And here are at least 3 other sites which won't ruin the street view and will be at least as good as Singapore. Actually, where they're going to put it is much better for most people. And that's what one of the guys in our area did. He analysed it all and worked it all out. And we can show one of your local residents that working, that he can then go through and say, well, if you put it there, it will be better, and then we can do the argument about it. It's ruining your lives.
I don't remember any drilling holes.
Oh no, they're ever so quick.
Box going up, you know, like you said.
They're ever so quick with the holes. It's half an hour and they're done.
done.
They're not long.
I don't know.
But no,
But, so going on from that, what do you know about these 15-minute cities? Because Central Bedfordshire is listed amongst all the other councils.
they seem like an absolute nonsense to me.
So,
And I think it will fall. There is one operating in Oxford.
well, I wanted to go to that on Saturday. There was a really good turnout. I don't know if you've seen that. I couldn't for other reasons. There was a really good turnout because they're doing, is it the low neighbourhood scheme, things like they've got in London where they put flower beds and so on, so you can't go directly, you have to go all the way around the town and take 30 minutes instead of 10, you know, to go through, which creates more, you know,
pollution.
Exactly.
Yeah, but then they're trying to say that you cannot drive out of your city. Well, I lived in a place like this called Russia, not for long, I was only there 2 weeks.
Exactly. It's totally
And
unacceptable.
I'm utterly against that kind of control of people. People are more controllable by a lack of regulation. If you let people do what they want, we're all very predictable. We're human beings, we all do the same thing.
You regulate yourself.
You get the odd nutcase that does kill a lot, but most men are actually quite safe. But a few men are making most men look terrible and terrifying all the women. 97% of women have been sexually harassed. 97%. It's almost all of you. And I'm shocked about that. But when I say that to them, people say I'm causing alarm. Causing alarm. And I'm like, but it's done in the UN report.
No, but as a woman you're talking to saying that, and I just think, yeah, it's in there.
But I said this at the council meeting or something like it.
So
And
what
I'm
was your
aware
concern about, can you say your question again?
About what
15
do you know
minutes
from the council with this,
As council,
are you discouraged from telling people, like the Old Palace Lodge, about this 15-minute zone? So what do you know what's happening to Central Bedfordshire?
as a council,
Has it all been, extended to yourselves about this zone?
no, we officially we don't know anything.
I can tell you what I know. I was contacted by somebody. Was that you who asked me a question?
No.
Somebody sent me an email and said, what about the 15 minutes city issue? And I said, I don't know what that is. So I looked it up on Google and I read about it. I then contacted the leader of the independent group, it's at Central West Council, and he said, it's basically a conspiracy theory that we're all going to be, there'll be a plan so that everything will be provided within 15 minutes of where you can walk or use public transport. Now, to walk 15 minutes, it takes more than 15 minutes for most people to walk from where we live to the town centre, so that would have to become a 25-minute. And then if you
Depending
were,
on your age.
yeah,
I've
obviously,
got blue badge and arthritis, and
but really, the idea of that really is probably something like building a new city. Building a new city.
no, they're going to be imposed.
Yeah, but you can't, the existing things we've got, with not having health hubs, if we're not going to have health hubs in places, and we're not, like Leighton Buzzard, and we're not going to have those things, then there's no way you can do that. So you'd have to put those things in.
That's not going to happen, Dunstable.
Most of us logically think you can't do
How
that.
outrageous is building hundreds of houses, and that 15-minute city idea doesn't work because there's no services
Well, how does
down
it
there.
square with if you have to go to another town to work? Do we all stop working then?
Yeah, that's
If
the
you're
idea.
allowed out of your zone for 100 times a year,
Yeah.
and after 5 years it's working well, so we dropped it to 50.
But
think the
really,
concept-
so,
25.
I actually think the concept of it is quite a nice idea that within 15 minutes you've got a doctor, a dentist, a pub, a supermarket, you know,
No
This is
problem.
where-
hotel.
Local authorities
But that's not going to
making sure that all the services you need are within 15 minutes. I have no problem with that
Yeah,
at
but,
all.
but this, it's like you said, people will self-regulate. I mean, I walked in tonight and lucky enough, I'm near enough to town on walk. It's all uphill and back, you know, and you can sort of like walk to places where you can. But then you'll, I have to go out of town to visit my sons in Oxford, you've got elderly parents in St Albans. They're two different districts, if you call it that. Am I not going to be allowed to do that? Or you're not going to
Well,
only
yeah.
go to
Again, it's
You go to the theatre or go to the like a concert or go to London for the day. It will decrease tourism because people won't want to travel.
Yeah.
And you'll be going out of the zone thinking, well, better not go out of the zone.
I don't think
because I
Mayor
need to
Carl's
travel.
not as high, is he?
Yeah.
Mayor Carl's, I don't think he's coming up quite this far outside London.
Well, that's for you,
That's
Leslie.
the idea.
That's for you, Leslie. Yeah, they're trying that, but this is where you'll get a fine if you go out of the
That's what he's
zone.
trying to get everybody in the city.
Yeah.
But nobody has a car, I don't have a car anymore.
Well, no, in London they want everyone to have an Oyster card. I haven't got an Oyster card, so I can't go to London. Well, if I do go to London, I've got to buy an Oyster card. They've basically set up their own currency. And to me, I don't agree with any of this controlling people. I believe, yes, it's a great idea to build all of your facilities nice and close to where you live. But you can't have them all 15 minutes from everybody's house. Because there are villages in the countryside where you have to surround the village with facilities so that the people in the village have the facilities.
But then it's if your friends or family are in different town or zone or district,
You've got a friend who lives
you
in...
can't stop people doing
You
that's
can't
not
access
Sounds
right.
like East and West Germany, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah, but what I'm
North
saying
and
is-
South Nicosia.
I think this discussion is, you could go on about it for, it's a bit of a conspiracy theory because, well, it is a conspiracy theory because you can't impose it on a place, on a town where it doesn't have those facilities, where it would take longer for you to get to places. You can build a town or a city like that where you're starting from scratch. You could do that, but if you think about, you think about it, when was it? 5-10 years ago, someone said, the Prime Minister said, by 2035, we're going to stop building cars that aren't electric. They've got to all be electric. Now, we're only 12 years away from that target as such, and there's no way that people are all going to be giving up their petrol cars for that. Even if, so saying something that you want and actually achieving it are completely different things.
Again, it's much better that it's led by, I've got an electric car, this is my third electric car. I can drive to Newcastle in this electric car, it's absolutely lovely. But it is down to the technologists, and that's me and my friends, to provide cars that are better than petrol or diesel cars that you think, actually, I want one of these. We've got to be led by carrots, not sticks. And this is a stick thing. It's to beat you into staying home, break you up as a society, make you into small chunks where we can handle you. As John said, there is some conspiracy theory around this, but there's already one operating in Oxford. And they have done this 100
But they haven't denied it in Oxford because the councillors that propose this don't even live in Oxford And that must all like stick in your craw.
Exactly.
You don't live here, but you're imposing that. And it was a good turnout. There was a good speech by a 12-year-old girl that echoed, and you see, she echoed that Greta Thunberg and said to Claire Schwab, how dare you? And it was a good speech because it's going to affect younger people and their freedoms.
Yeah, and we're still
which are
obsessed with the idea
their
that
freedoms.
it's pollution. Everyone in this room, we all give off 100 watts. We are 100 watt light bulbs, and we all use 2 cubic feet of air an hour. And we actually consume about 35 watts of energy. So actually, as people, we give off roughly 3 times what we use. So the emissions problem is fundamentally the number of people on the planet.
Maybe that's why they're trying to reduce the population.
Well, we have to have a discussion as a planet about generally reducing the population, because it cannot go on at this exponential rate.
That's probably why younger generations are deciding not to have children, because it's won't be such a nice life.
Can I try and go on to something else? Because there's a lady here who's got a notepad. Are you crossing things off that you wanted to say?
No, she's writing down
You're
what to
just
say.
writing down. Do you have a question?
She's that famous journalist.
And,
You're that famous journalist.
yeah.
All right, okay. I just wondered if there was a list of questions.
But yeah, I don't think they'll happen. I think we're too free a society.
I couldn't get rid of it. I couldn't.
Well, I'm dealing with.
Yeah, I understand that.
I mean, because for the roads outside of said zone, they're our roads, we were paying our taxes.
There's
in the countryside.
a good programme on
saying you can't go there.
Radio 4. Do you know how BBC Sounds works?
No, I don't use it.
Have you got a computer?
Yeah, I don't use it much, but yeah.
A phone? I'll show you BBC Sounds. Write to John. We'll get you. Have you got an email address? Do you do
Yeah,
emails?
that's what she's giving me.
Right. Get it to me and I'll send you a little tutorial on BBC Sounds. Radio 4 does a very good thing on these, and there's a good programme on that, 15 Minute City in Oxford. There are a lot of people on there giving all their positive thoughts about it, but there are also some people on there giving some practical reasons why it just wasn't working. So that's the best solution I can give you. It is actively being investigated by journalists as a conspiracy theory. It is part conspiracy theory, part fact. The breeding faction want us to move to, cycling and walking.
But yeah, I can see that, and electric cars, and people do things without self-regulation. I mean, I downsized from a 1.8 one day to a 1.25 Focus. That's, it goes like a pudding, but it's, it's a lot greener than the old one.
But electric car goes like
things, whether it's your light bulbs or your whatever.
But I think your original question was about, is the council discussing this? And the answer is no. The town council hasn't discussed it, and Central Business Council hasn't put it in any agenda.
Okay. If it's not conspiracy,
But
central bedroom.
quick show of hands, given that we've just introduced you to 15-minute cities, who thinks 15-minute cities are a great idea? And who thinks they're probably not such a good idea? So, a majority think they're about it. That's when it comes up at the council, I can say, I'm asked, it's not a representative portion of the public, but it is some of the public.
But if you ever watch The Apprentice, you get this number of people, they ask someone
In
a
a focus
question,
group.
and they said, yeah, okay, that was 1, 2, 3, 4, that was 80% of the people who were against it.
Yeah.
So,
I've always used such things generally, but it does form my opinion that there are concerns about these things, and that's fine. I can say that. Next, go on.
Yeah, just a couple of questions have been asked by some friends who can't make it tonight.
Yeah.
They said that we've heard the rumours all floating around town the last week or so. Two, I think, actually quite understood. One was the NatWest is going to be used for more asylum seekers.
I think that sounds like nonsense.
The other one that seems a little bit more credible, and somebody, we might need to talk to somebody about this, is that new block of flats that were built on the old pub site.
I asked Andrew Sluice about that. I was asked about what's it called? It's called Birch. I think it's called Birch Court.
Oh, Birch Court.
That was built on the old site of the first and last. Yes, I asked him about that. I was asked. And he came back and told me that Central Business Council invested in that to provide accommodation for people with learning difficulties, people who need additional help in their living. So it is going to be a central beds property where they will be renting it to people who actually need additional help in their living.
So it's something I would approve of.
Yeah, I mean, we just wanted to sort of dispel their fears.
Apparently they fitted all the wrong doors along.
So they would, wouldn't they?
Apparently they fitted all the wrong doors.
What I've said to a lot of people is,
Yeah.
sometimes people contact me and say, is it true about this rumour I've heard? I said, well, the thing is, if something's true, it's very easy to prove because there'll be some evidence.
Yeah.
There'll be a website, there'll be a link, there'll be a government thing about this, it'll be in some newspapers. If it's not true, it'd be very difficult to find any evidence unless it's a conspiracy. So I don't think you can have a conspiracy about a particular building there, but this is what I say to people. When someone says to me, have you heard, or is it true? I say, okay, you come and get a website or something that is reputable, or a government, or something something on the government website. You should do that, and I'll take that forward. But if you're just going to say to me, I've heard a rumour,
Rumours is ugly.
you know,
Used to be written on one of the toilets in Vauxhall.
look at what happened in the pandemic. People were actually burning down the 5G masts and saying the pandemic is caused by the 5G masts. And
We were on the way here and Cheryl said something that I thought was very pertinent. She said it's getting increasingly difficult to lie to the public because of the web. You know, and what John just said is quite true. You can just do a quick search, is this likely to happen? As you know, you was made aware of 15 minutes, it is quick search, but I get advantages because I listen to Radio 4 a lot. So I know all about the farming situation, all about women's problems, because it's the women's hour. I was expecting a couple of questions tonight. I said, just listen to the last 3 weeks of women's hour, and that's 15 hours of your time. And you'll get all that information I gave you about women, the situation with women being attacked in the country. It's there, it takes you 15 hours to listen to it, which not everybody's got time to do. But it is true, what Cheryl said is quite true. It's harder to lie to the public now, because we can just go and search and see if what you're saying is true. But that also means government no longer needs to be governed by these party groups. Because us three independents, we can talk to each other all day long. We've all got phones, we can send each other a message, they're putting up a 5G mast in, and then we know. It wasn't like that 20 years ago. So the situation has changed. You know, we can have a far more people-based government because we're in a better position to consult the people than we've ever been. So that's a good thing.
And the thing about NatWest is the top two floors, the second and third floor, have been empty for quite some time. So if they were going to do accommodation, the post office has been empty for some time. There's quite a few buildings there. So if they were going to take any of these buildings over, rather than use hotels...
I think a lot of this rumour mill is
Desperate.
brought around by people on, shall we say, the less desirable side of the right-hand table of the parties.
Well, rumours start somewhere, and then people just think, oh yeah, what if that can happen? But really, I mean, the government have been throwing so much money at hotels to accommodate people who've come over from France, and why not continue? What's the point in them trying to say, yeah, well, we're now going to refurbish an old council building? Why don't we actually just get another hotel? From the government point of view.
Like, the problem the government got themselves into, and we can appreciate this as a town council, they've painted themselves into a corner, if you like. They've had to do something very, very quickly. What we object to as a town council, or as town councils, the three of us, is that, you know, if you'd given us 6 weeks notice, as a town council, we could have put something in place to help accommodate these asylum seekers. Maybe we can't stop it happening, but we can mitigate the problem for the residents. We weren't given the opportunity to do that. So no, I think those two questions probably a bit rumour mill and probably caused by things like the occupation.
My only concern about that is, because I bank at NatWest, my business bank's there, and that closing is going to have an effect on the town And I have actually asked the regional manager for an answer as to why it is closing. I do think it would be valid for the town council or for CBC to ask NatWest on a higher level, is the building being considered for anything else? My understanding is because the top 2 floors couldn't be rented, NatWest took a strategic decision to shut the building, but it does leave another empty building in the centre of town and we don't know what's going to be used for.
Yeah, my niece banks with NatWest, and she popped in after school the other week, and she was in there for over half an hour because the queue was so long. So it's not like it isn't used. It's
No,
crazy.
it is. I think it's to do with it, but I will ask my regional manager because I've got a concern with it, because I've banked dollar checks as well. That's a real problem.
It is.
But I think it's quite valid for the town council to ask another empty building in Dunstable, what is it being considered?
This is where we feel the town council should be. We should be not aggressive, assertive in terms of businesses in the town. We don't want empty buildings. We don't really need another cafe or another nail bar or takeaway.
But the problem is the shops that are in towns are ones that are providing services rather than products. Because now the products can be delivered to your house. Okay, you can get coffee delivered to your house if you can't be bothered to put the kettle on. But really, and you can have someone come and cut your hair in your house. But for a lot of these things, going to have your hair cut in a hairdresser's is much more preferable than sitting at home and having all the hair on your carpet.
Yeah.
So most of the businesses are turning into ones that provide a service rather than sell products.
And obviously where we can, as a town council, we should be involved with all the shops, protecting the hair ones, the nail bars, everything else, but also the ones that are doing products like my sewing basket, go back to that one. But we were recently asked at planning about cash converters. Cash converters changing into the planning's gone through now, it's been processed, so I can talk about it, into more flats. And how do I say this? One of the political groups voted it through, although I voted against it. I was representing him, was only me there. And it actually got through our town council, but fortunately Central Beds went, no, you can't turn yet another shop into flats. So we got some support from Central Beds, and now we need to take that forward and be proactive in terms of getting good shops that the people want into town.
Yeah, I mean, there's planning permission that's been applied for turning the old Halifax building into 2 cafes, 2 takeaway shops on the ground floor and putting in flats above. And we objected to that, the town council have objected to that, because we don't need more takeaways. If it's to be refurbished, if the shop is to be refurbished, then refurbish it and make it available for a business to come here. And in some ways it's healthy to have a few empty shops because it attracts other businesses. If you're completely full, then no one can get there unless you're doing really well. And we don't also want these old buildings, because it is a listed building, turned into more accommodation that's got lots of people, no parking, and then you've got people living in small 1-bedroom studios, and it's not nice. I lived in a studio apartment for 18 months, and it's not nice that everything is in one room when you could have something a bit better. So we don't want to be that sort of town.
It's going to affect your mental health. Basically,
I do think it's about consultation. Now, if you look at Dunstable, Watling House, which is a used building, empty.
Yeah.
We've got the post office in the centre of Dunstable, empty. NatWest, empty.
What I thought actually, going back to that question about NatWest as well, and the post office, I think you said, in Ireland, in Dublin, there's a lot of, I think, so many illegal immigrants or whatever, some that have even been refused in England, just got on a plane, pushed in paperwork and started the process again. In Eastwall, in Dublin, they're using an empty office block and they're just putting them into cubicles and that's where they go. So it's not, you could do that in the post office as long as it was clean, obviously, it was clean facilities. Or instead of,
I think we want to look after people who are genuine
you could look after them like that, but it's not going above and beyond.
No, but we want to look after our town as well. And with those empty buildings, I think the very least Dunstable Town Council and CBCs have a conversation with the owners of those empty buildings about what the consideration is for them being empty.
What can we do?
What can be done so they're not empty?
Isn't that Ruby Tuesday one right next to the Saracens closing as
No,
well?
someone's taken that over.
It's changed
It's
hands.
changed hands, but it's keeping the same
Oh,
name.
right, okay, well, that's good then. At least that's still open.
We've had some successes, I think, locally. A lot of the work is done by the council officers. They're quite industrious little officers. They're only ordinary people like us, but they do really try for the town. They organise these events, and they're always quite successful, and they're professional. So we've got, as a people, we've got a bunch of officers, about 135 of them, who are actively ready to work for the direction we want. We just need to give them the direction, so they go for it.
But what you've also got to remember is that a lot of people, the companies that own shops that are empty, they don't actually want to do anything with them. Because at the moment we've got a project called the High Street Heritage Action Zone. It's been ongoing since 2019. And shops in the town centre, you've got the old Moore's shop, you've got the old Pizza Roma, used to be Tilly's the Butcher. It's just basically falling down on the inside. Now, and you've got other shops at Harrington, for example, that's got a horrible looking frontage and where the sign is. Now, they've all been offered money to do up their fronts, their shop fronts, or money to restructure. The council have gone to these companies and said, why don't you just sell the building? And just put it up for sale, and someone else can come along.
And I know why it is.
But they don't want to do it.
Alan will know as well. It's because a large hedge fund or something does find it convenient to have what is called tax write-downs. So these are loss-making parts of your business, where you can say, well, we made a fortune over it, but look, we lost a load of money on this building in Dunstable. So I don't have to pay as much tax. It's how the big companies tend to avoid paying tax.
And it's embarrassing because I used to work a few years ago with a colleague that lived in Luton. He came to pick his wife up from the theatre and came through this way into town. And he was telling me at work how awful Dunstable is. God, it's awful going into Dunstable.
It
looks nice when you've got Tilly's one side and Moore's the other. And at the time you had the Woolies that was empty and half built, and now you've got the Norm at the
It's out of
that's
interest. Tilly's
still sitting there.
Tilly's is falling down. And the estimate to repair it is £750,000. So it's never going to get repaired, and eventually it will fall down. And again, there's been no thought into the heritage.
Is it single owner?
Regeneration is single owner.
It's corporate owned.
Yeah,
It's a corporate owned. Big business. We do have a plan, which I can't take to the current structure of the council, because they'll just say no. We do have a plan, independent. Alan doesn't know yet because he's recently independent. We do have a plan. I need the town to vote in enough independence for me to have a council that I can take the plan to and have it adopted. Because there's no point in taking it to this active council because they'll just say no. And I'll have used my ammunition. And I want to present to the town and the town council a proper solution to this over a long term. Won't happen in a week, won't happen in a year, might not happen in 10 years, but ultimately the town will look good.
Each time a new council is elected, so after the elections are over, you'll have new councillors. Hopefully quite a few new faces. Anyway, you get a new council, and then we get to come up with ideas, as well as the officers, get to come up with ideas for what we call a corporate plan, which lasts the term of that council, so 4 years. So things like the signs that the welcome signs on the 4 points, 4 roads coming into town. That was on the corporate plan to review review those, and in the end it was decided to take the old ones away and put in a new sign. And whether you like those or not, that was on the corporate plan. There was also on the corporate plan a proposal to have a Muga, a multi-use games area, built somewhere in Dunstable on one of the parks, and that is going ahead, and that's going to go in Luton Road Recreational Park, stroke Kingsbury Rec. So there are lots of things. There's about 50 things covering services, covering different things to upgrade areas and places. So we have that as a corporate plan. So any idea that my brother or Alan comes along with, we then vote on it to get it on the corporate plan, and then during those 4 years, we may have things that we can easily do. We may have things that are more aspirational, that we'd like to do if and when we get the money. Now, when we originally had proposed the multi-use games area for a park in Dunstable, and at the time, town council didn't have the money. But when it sold some unused land that it couldn't, that was disused, it was polluted on the Meadoway allotments, it raised £500,000. What's going to be built there will be homes for people with learning difficulties, and that money that we've raised, or town council's raised for that, can help with the Amuga and other things that we had in mind, which we didn't have the money for. So the idea is that, as I say, we can come up with ideas. You can suggest ideas, because the Amuga wasn't my idea. What happened was, there were lots of complaints about teenagers hanging around shops on Katherine Drive and other parks where they were hanging around on the younger children's play area, the teenagers. And so I went up to them and said, what would you rather be doing than hanging around here? And they said, well, if you can get us a Muga. And I kind of like, yeah, okay. I had no idea what they were talking about. But and I went to another group and asked them, and they said, well, get us a Muga. I thought, okay. So they showed me, they got their phones out, that's what a Muga is. Oh, okay. So I did some research. I went to Aston Clinton Park, I looked at their Muga. I found out from their council where they got it, how much it cost. It was a 4-page, fully costed project, which we put in, and they accepted it. So that's how ideas come. From teenagers asked for this, and they're going to get something they asked for.
And ordinary independents can get these things done, but we can get them done easier. You make a great independent, you speak beautifully in public. Consider it. In fact, you all would, to be honest. In fact, anyone would. You know, it's young people, everyone.
If you're quite happy to speak your mind, and you don't want, basically you're quite happy to speak your mind and say how you feel, and then if other people talk to you, you're quite happy to say what they say. Like this gentleman over here has brought in some questions from other people.
But it isn't art, is it? It's not art being a town council.
No, it's not. What I would say, stepping down from Conservative to becoming an independent, my whole view of things is, I want to be independent and I want to represent you, but you need to tell me what you want me to do, what I can do, what I can't do, and what I can campaign to try and get done. Your town and where your representatives, that's all.
We just you with a bigger voice.
So these sort of conversations gives us a way forward as to what you feel should be happening in the town.
Now,
some things can get done, some things won't.
I suspect the incoming council will hold these monthly meetings themselves. Even though when we set off, we were told we couldn't do this. And we were told like that, you can't do that. And I said, well, what, you can't go out and talk to the public? No. And it was put to us like, legally we couldn't. And I said, well, we couldn't do it anyway. Put us in prison if you like. And over 4 years, that's changed to, I think, the view now, even though the bigger groups are politically aligned and we're not, I think they've got the idea that going out and listening to the people isn't just a good idea, it's something you've got to do. You've got to find out what people want and do it. I think so.
They sort of have that attitude because they meet in the quadrant now, don't they, on a regular basis,
Yeah,
to meet people.
they call them
Surgeries.
surgeons, and that just seems like a terrible name. It seems like a terrible description because I hear excuse-giving session,
Yeah.
and I know people have been to these surgeries and they are basically
Exactly.
fobbed off, and I ain't fobbing no one off. If someone comes along and says we need to bring back handling in Dunstable, I don't think we can, but I'll listen to their argument. So I have an extreme view.
And the difference is, the great thing is that although we haven't got as many people in this meeting as we had in our last meeting in January, there's the opportunity for people to come, but also anything that one person brings up, you have an opportunity to discuss it. You can put in your opinion, and you have tonight, and other people have discussed what has been mentioned. Whereas if you have a one-to-one with a councillor, or what often happens is you'll get one member of the public and then the other councillors will come up and kind of gang up on you.
And they'll tell you why it's happening anyway.
And they'll give you all the excuses, and you go away thinking, well, I don't feel any better than what I went there.
Well, you haven't said much tonight, young man.
Not hardly anything.
But do feel free to say, I don't care if 2 or 3 people come, because it means I'm listening more intently to certain people's ideas. And I don't care if it's a room full of people like it was last time. I'm listening to a lot of ideas, but not as many people get to speak, so it's not as good in that way.
I mean, it is useful as well because the gentleman who made asked those couple of questions, my son-in-law lives in St Peterborough, just behind Birch Court, and he's asked me what's happening with it. I can give an answer now.
Yeah.
And that was quite useful.
Well, I will put that, when I publish this in a couple of days' time, I will put that up there, and then everyone can see it if you're on Facebook.
And
But
it is
I'll
useful.
give you another
Sharing
example.
information.
I'll give you another example of how things have changed. We have in Dunstable what's called the Dunstable Joint Committee. This is 5 Dunstable Central Best councillors and 5 Dunstable Town councillors. They're all Conservatives. So we don't get a look in, the Labour group don't get a look in, it's all run by the Conservatives. Now, we were told, I went to the town clerk, I said, I've got a few things I'd like to do, I've got a few questions about the town. He said, go to the Dunstable Joint Committee, ask them your questions. So if anybody's got a question about the roads or the pavement, you want to do something, go to them, they'll talk about it. Okay. So I told local residents, if you want questions, you want answers, go to this Dunstable Joint Committee. They've always got a point, like the first or second point on their agenda is questions from the public. So you could stand up, you could ask a question, and they would try and answer it. And if they couldn't, they'd come back to you. Or they'd say, if you send the question to me, like questions to us like 7 days in advance, we'll get as much as we can so we can make sure we've got an answer when you come to the meeting. So we did this. We went along and 2 or 3 people asked questions. And they got some answers. They weren't very good answers. A lot of the times they were kind of like, well, we're not really doing anything about that. We haven't really thought about anything about that. So then there was an issue that came along about lighting and signage at the bottom of Woodford Road. Because what's been happening is that because the lampposts have been knocked down and the signs have been taken off, when people come down to the bottom of Woodford Road, they don't know which way to turn, because there's a dual carriageway kind of thing. So they just turn right and they go up where the other cars are coming down. Whereas if the signage and lighting was there, they wouldn't be doing that. So the question was, why can't you replace the lights, the lampposts and the arrow and this sort of thing? And the answer came back that they weren't going to do that because they didn't think it was necessary. So I published that. I published that answer on Facebook and said, this is the answer that we got. When they published their minutes, they'd obviously seen what I said, and they put in a different answer, which was, well, we're looking to do that in the next year. So, and then I got called in to a meeting with Carol Hegley and the town clerk that I'm not allowed to go to meetings, ask questions and write down what answers they give and then publish it online. And I thought, well, that's basically what I want to do anyway. Oh no, you can't do that. You've got to wait for it. Yeah, you've got to wait for the official.
I think in John's case it's called an attempt at censorship.
I know, it was an attempt at censorship. But the thing is, about these asking questions, before that, you were allowed to go and ask any kind of question about the town. Not Bedford, but just this town. You could just ask any question about things going on. And then, because I'd got several residents who were coming down and asking awkward questions and not getting good answers, and then I was saying what was happening, they changed the rules. They then decided to say, right, you can only ask questions about anything that's on the agenda. Your question has to be into us 7 days before the meeting. The agenda isn't published until 7 days before the meeting. So basically, the only way you can now ask a question to the Dunstable Joint Committee, these are new changes by the Conservatives, is that as soon as the agenda is published, you've got to read it, bearing in mind it's like pages and pages. You've then got to decide if the thing you want, is it related to that? And if it isn't, you've got to wait until another time. And even then, once you've sent your question to them, they might not answer it.
As you can see, this does get John going a bit, but
what I'm saying is, they've actually stopped people asking questions. They don't want you to ask questions.
And from what I've seen and heard and told to me personally, they don't seem to listen to us anyway.
No.
Meeting back October, I think it was.
No, I think
I went to.
when we said, well, once we get elected, we said it was actually the mayor making a stand-up argument with someone who is also a town council and a CBC council. It was absolutely against me doing this. You cannot listen to the public, they don't know what they're on about.
But she was the one that said to me, reference this cash converters thing, she said, right, what do people want in this town? We all said, no more flats, no more, don't let cash converters go to flats. And she said, right, I'll put that forward. Now, obviously, in the shoes, well, like you guys voted against it, do you like it?
Only I voted against it.
Yeah, it's the same as I had a certain Conservative councillor come knocking on my door with the highways agency, and we stood outside on my driveway, so you've got the trucks and all the heavy traffic, and he could hardly hear me, and I could hardly hear him, and he was asking me about stuff to do, and I said, we have such an issue with speeding on this road. And the highways agency, she didn't say a word. The whole time I spoke, she said nothing. I kept looking at her like pointedly. I was like, how many accidents do there have to be on this road before you do something about this road? And she just, at no point did she answer something. She just stood mute the whole time. And he said, well, we don't have any issues with speeding on this road. I was like, anyone who lives on this road has just said to you about the speeding on the road.
Most of our...
You don't think there's an issue with speeding on this road?
I've got to say, most of our town
No, they don't.
councillors are good guys. I think they're kind of hamstrung by being politically motivated. I think it takes away from what you can do for the town. Myself, personally, that's my opinion. I find a good person who is not doing the things that they naturally would do because they're not in a situation where they can do those things. And that's what I want to change, because I think this town's brilliant. I think it's one of the best in the world. I've lived in Czechoslovakia, I speak Czech fluently. I've lived in France, I speak French fluently. I've lived in Germany, I speak good German. I've lived all over the place. I've lived in Cyprus for 6 years. I think Cyprus is a great place. It'd be lovely when it's finished. And I still think, for my children to grow up, this was the best place. We could have stayed in Cyprus, they would have gone to the American Academy. I still think this town has so much that it could give people. It's just down to changing the political environment, changing the local government environment to something that's really positively motivating, takes us forward. I think these guys are the ones to do it. They're as noisy as like when there's something they're on about, you've just got to listen. We've got a Facebook page that he does all of those. I don't do that. He looks after it. He's got 1,400 followers now, which is a lot.
Well, actually, the number of followers, we have to draw this meeting to a close because we've come to the end of our time, unfortunately. But on the Facebook page, what I can tell you is that we've now got as many followers on Dunstable Independence, 2 Independents, as the Dunstable In Touch page, which is the Conservative Party page, but they don't like to say Conservative Party, but it is, because it's all the Dunstable Town Councillors. So you've got a Conservative Party page which has 18 councillors, the Conservative Club, the Conservative South West Association, and all their supporters. 1,400 followers. We've got 1,400 followers. So in 4 years, we've matched them. Now what we need is independent candidates, so that we can then give people someone to vote for. Because when the election comes along, if you've got a ballot paper and you say, oh, I wanted an independent to vote for, well, it's because they didn't stand.
We've got to stand. We have to stand up as people.
When you stand, who are you standing against for the Tories?
Everyone else.
You live in Langdale,
Yeah.
so
I mean, that's Holly.
we'll have people
Yeah, that's
It's-
Warning Ward.
Sorry?
That's what.
Yeah, yeah. Which ward are you?
Ignore.
Hickney.
All the ward, all
What's
the
the
ward,
town centre?
Central.
Central.
all the ward names are changing. By the way, they're going to go to Compass, North, South, East, West. Because what happens is when someone goes. Sorry.
That's going to happen in May.
Yeah, 4th of May is election. May the 4th be with you.
So all the councillors that are there now will have to, everyone will restand.
Everyone is. It's an election for everyone.
I think there's a lot that won't stand because we've had. I employed a professional group to assist us in getting elected, and they've done an awful lot of work for us over the last 2 or 3 years. They're largely known as the Conservative Party. And the other group I've also got working for us is the Labour Party. So I think independents stand a better chance in this election than they ever had. And, you know, if you're prepared to, sir, I can promise you, it's the work you want it to be. 2 hours a month, 20 hours a week.
Well, basically, we put some leaflets round, and on the leaflet we said you attend, on average, 2 meetings a month. If that, I mean, this month we've had the full council at the beginning of the month. We don't have any other official meetings apart from I've got a meeting on Wednesday, but it's a subcommittee.
You're quite within your rights to say, I just want to come to full council meetings. That's 6 meetings a year, and a lot of them are an hour or 2 long. If you want to, or you can say, well, actually, I'm getting a bit more into this, and you could work all day, every day of it. But it's your control.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. If someone comes and knocks, if you're a councillor and someone comes and knocks on your door and says, "What can you do about this?" You don't have to come up with a solution. You've got officers. You contact the officers and say, "Someone's asked me about this. I think I need some help. What can you do?" And they will tell you. Because really, a councillor doesn't actually do anything in themselves. They go get the officers. They contact the officers to do all these things.
And we've got good officers. They listen and they go and do what you ask them to. So it is up to us as people, as a community, to stand up and take control of our own destiny.
I'll be honest, I was surprised how many people turned up at the Priory. I just thought, as a nation, we're pretty apathetic, really.
Yeah.
And to hear somebody like Andrew Sellers going on, you know, we're caring and whatever, the Brits ain't a bad bunch.
But if you do want to stand, just get in touch with John, because we're going up to Bedford on tomorrow.
Yeah.
We will get the form for everyone. We can fill it in for you, tell you exactly what you need to do. There's no deposit, there's no charge. And you just get to stand in a local election, and if elected, you have to find out where Grove House is, and that's it. Everything else is done for you. So, we have actually found out that my nephew will be standing for one of the major parties, and he's got no idea about the process, because they won't tell him. We will tell you the process, but we'll make sure that everything, every I is dotted and every T is crossed for you. Just because it's your first time. You don't have to agree with us. You can be an out-and-out left-winger. We've got a communist. He's not a communist now, but he was when he was younger. And he's quite keen on standing. And it's like, yeah, fine. Got very left-wing views, fine. I don't want. I don't have a side or a view. I don't think Aaron does particularly.
I think if you care about your environment, the town that you live in, and you want to have an effect on it, then stand as an independent. But when you do stand as an independent, then you really need to talk to the people who are standing for and say, what do you want me to affect? Because there's no point in campaigning on something that people don't really want.
No.
So we do need to find out. That's why these consultations are very good. The reason why I actually moved from Conservative to Independent, because I felt the Conservative Party in this town were taking the town in the wrong direction, and I wasn't comfortable with some of the things that were happening, and I feel I had more of an effect in the town as an independent. And as Councillor John said, at most council meetings I will have something to say. You can agree with me, you can disagree with me, but at least I've got an opinion.
What kind of things were they doing, taking the wrong direction, which you don't mind me asking, that you didn't
Well,
agree with?
I think the Joint Committee is a good example how Conservatives in Dunstable control the Joint Committee and adapt it so you can't even ask a question.
Yeah, that's
So it's about information and inclusion. I think Andrew Saloon, and I've quite clearly said even on my own Facebook page, you know, to be aware of that situation, and an executive member of CBC to be aware of that, and not have the confidence to tell Dunstable Town Council that says to me what other things that they're in control of don't we know.
That's my
And
concern.
that's my worry.
Shouldn't that be referred to the local government ombudsman?
Well, the Old Parish Lodge isn't a motive.
No, not the Old Parish Lodge.
But
The organisation where you can't ask a question because it's got to be in 7 days before.
No, because they run the rules. It's within the rules.
Yeah, but that's a local government ombudsman
No, it's within,
issue, surely,
no, it's within the
where you're
rules.
denied your rights.
It's within, look, you're not really denied your rights. You can still ask a question. It's just the way it's done is to make sure it's very difficult. But it's Central West Council make up the rules for how Central West Council is run. So it has been put forward by the independent group who are Central West Councillors that they relax the rules on asking questions. They make it, because we've been there, I've been there a couple of times to put things forward at the full council, and you get 3 minutes. You get 3 minutes to say whatever you want. And there's like 60 people. It's a big room. You're at a table like this. You could be very nervous. You might speak too fast, too slow. But once you've said those 3 minutes, once you've said what you say, if there's any reply, they might come back. You're not allowed to answer. You're not allowed to say a thing. During the pandemic, I put forward online, I was allowed to do this online, I was allowed to ask a question, and I asked before the Health Hub was built, it was back in 2020, I asked them, would you adhere to a referendum if it was held in Dunstable on having the Health Hub built? And that's basically my question. I gave a bit more information on that because Carol Hegley, do you remember the Queensway Hall? Carol Hegley was part of the Queensway Hall Action Group trying to keep the Queensway Hall, and she asked for a questionnaire on that, and we got a questionnaire, and the questionnaire was more than 75% of people in favour to keep the Queensway Hall, and the council ignored it. So I wanted to make sure that before we have the questionnaire, that the council would actually adhere to the result. So I put all these things forward. Took me 3 minutes, and then Carol Hegley spent 15 minutes basically saying no, that they wouldn't adhere, even if we had a referendum, and even if the people said they don't want it, they would not recognise that result.
I want a council that says if the people vote to have this, whatever it is, cows on the downs, for instance, well, that's a private thing, it's not for us, but something public, like arrows on the road. If the people want the arrows back up on the road, I want a council that does that.
I think that's the thing, consultation and actually doing what the consultation has asked you to do, two different things. And the arrows on the road is a good example, isn't it? 15 people wanted it left, 1,000 people wanted it changed. And they're the people who are driving through Dunstable, know it's wrong.
Yeah.
What's happened?
And it is.
They've had the consultation and ignored it.
If we don't get a lot of independent candidates, we won't get a lot of independent councillors. If we don't get a lot of independent councillors, our good ideas will be voted down as they have been for the last. His hotel one recently, he spoke for it, I spoke for it, and I spoke for it as the beginning of the town council being involved with the businesses in a positive and effective way. Yeah.
I think the car parking, CBC raising the car parking was another thing. There was a consultation. It's not a good idea.
No, car
Nobody
parking
in Dunstable thinks it's a poor idea, but what happened?
They've got a charge now.
Car parking in Dunstable should be free. It should be free for one reason. We have a lot of outlying villages. They'd love to come shopping here. But if we have car parking charges like we've got, they're going to drive to Milton Keynes or down to St Albans. We could double the trade in the town from Eggington, Edinburgh, Eton Bray, Tottenham.
Yeah.
And we refuse to do so simply because we don't want them bringing their cars into our town, so we've got high parking charges. Do away with the parking charges, get a few better shops, and you've got a town that's working again.
And toilets.
Comes down to
Open the toilets to the public rather than bore them up.
We've also had that conversation.
It's registered, it will get asked for.
I really must try and draw this to a close, because otherwise we have to pay more.
And we can't afford it.
So thank you very much for coming. Hopefully, the next meeting is on the 22nd of March at the Katherine Drive. I'll just make sure. I've got it down. 22nd of March, Katherine Drive. It's a Wednesday.
7 o'clock.
tell your friends.
And if you've got a friend
22nd of March.
who might want
St
to
Catherine's Church, Katherine Drive.
get them in touch with John, because we don't want 600 independent candidates. We only need to fill the ballot paper if we can. Okay, maybe we can't, but we're going to have a go.
Don't worry about that.
By filling the ballot paper, we give a good chance. But we don't want everyone to go out and stand on their own, because we'll wind up with 20 candidates in a ward, and they'll all have 6 votes, and the Conservative will romp home.
We said that there.
So, you know,
So tell your friends, and if you've got questions, bring them, because it's been useful for me tonight, because standing as an independent or becoming independent, I want to do what people in the town want done, not what I want done.
Yeah.
It's our town, we can work together. So bring questions and let's have more conversation. And if you want to stand and really become involved, I'm sure
I'll
John
I'll
will.
help John where I can. A bit of money, thanks. You haven't said anything tonight, you're one of our better questioners, but as John says, we have come to an end. Thank you very much for attending.
Yeah, thanks again.
We will appear again in a month's time.
Great, thank you.